My name's Dimitri Liambotis. I am a regional manager here for our electrical safety testing division. Today we will be discussing medical device electrical safety testing, how to improve your ISO quality system. Now, we do have a team available in the chat window of this Zoom meeting for any questions that come up. If you have a question, please ask it in this chat window during the presentation and someone will be able to assist you. Okay, so we have a wide array of products here at Chroma, from AC power sources, DC power supplies, AC loads, DC loads, power meters, and everything here on the screen. The item we will be discussing today is part of our electrical safety testing unit, which is on the top right-hand corner there. We do also have an automated test systems division, which you can see in the lower right-hand corner there, which we will get into as well. So a quick overview on what we'll be discussing today. We'll mainly be covering IEC UL standard number 60601-1, which is a third edition. We'll be reviewing the commonly required electrical safety tests, as well as hardware solutions to accomplish these tests. And then finally, we will go over our Captivate software and how you can utilize that software to meet your testing needs. So your testing requirements will depend on what type of a DUT or product you have. So with this standard in particular, there really isn't a fixed amount of tests that you would need to run. It really depends on which specific medical device you make. So test requirements differ from DUT to DUT. Most commonly required tests are the ground bond test, an AC or a DC Hipot test, an insulation resistance test, or the leakage current test. First off is the ground bond test. This stresses the integrity of the ground connection. It will apply a high amount of current to the ground pin or ground wire of your device, and then it will measure back that electricity on the chassis of the device. So the reading is received in milliohms, and per 60601, this test is required for both performance and 100% in production for Class 1 products. Typically, this standard calls out for a current to be applied of somewhere in the 10 to 25 amp range for both performance and production. And often the resistance requirement is less than 100 milliohms. So this can definitely change depending on a product. These are some parameters that cover most of the medical devices out there. And now on to AC/DC Hipot and insulation resistance. This test stresses the insulation of a device between the current carrying and non-current carrying conductors. This will apply high voltage to line and neutral while they're shorted together and measure back on the ground or the chassis of the device. The measurement will be in milliamps for a Hipot, and then in megaohms for insulation resistance. And really what those are just based off of Ohm's law. They're inverses of each other based off of Ohm's law. So if you were to do the math, you would actually see that the numbers are pretty similar with that equation. And then per 60601, this test is required for both performance testing as well as 100% in production for Class 1 and Class 2 rated products. These are some parameters that we interpreted from the standard, but they can definitely change based on your product. So if what we tell manufacturers to do is to ask their IEC or UL inspector for what specific parameters they need to test to. But from what we can tell, that for high potent performance, it's somewhere between the 500 and 4,000 volt range in AC, or 707 to 5656 volts in a DC for 60 seconds. The key part there is that it's a 60-second test. And then for production, it's a little bit more simpler. So anywhere between 1,000 and 3,000 volts for 1 second. And then the insulation resistance test can be run after a Hipot test at a lower voltage to verify the DUT wasn't damaged during the Hipot test. So now we move on to leakage current testing. This is a little bit more of a complex electrical safety test. This is a line voltage insulation test that simulates the effect of a person touching an exposed metal part of a powered product and detects whether or not the leakage current that would flow through the person's body would be below a safe level. So this test utilizes a human body impedance model or network, which is attached to the input of the measuring device. So in addition to powering on your product, as well as having it run through the human body impedance network, you also need to do your measurements under certain fault conditions. So what fault conditions measure how a DUT performs under certain conditions to the line, neutral, and ground. And then the main four we have here are normal mains, which would be a closed ground. All operating conditions are normal. S5 here is located at the top. This is the ground, more or less. We left S5 in here just so there can be some sort of correlation between the left column here and the diagram on the right. But S5 is ground, so ground is closed. This is normal condition. The next fault condition is reverse mains, which would be where hot and neutral are reversed, and then ground would be open. So definitely have a lot going on with that fault condition. The next one is single fault normal, where the neutral would be open, but the ground is closed. And then single fault reverse, where hot and neutral would be reversed, but neutral would also be open. So here's a list of the certain fault conditions that you would have to test under for leakage current testing. And now we go back to 60601 and how leakage current testing is tied into the standard. There are a number of different leakage current tests. Which specific leakage current tests you need to run are DUT specific and usually assigned by whomever is auditing your 60601 process. Leakage current testing is required in performance, but many medical device manufacturers are running leakage current tests as part of 100% production line testing due to findings in litigation risk assessments. Basically, what that means is many manufacturers found a weak point where they could be exploited in a lawsuit. God forbid something were to ever happen, and they decided to cover themselves by adding leakage current testing to production. And then finally here, 60601 requires that the DUT is powered on at 110% of line voltage during the test. So an AC power source is used to step up the voltage for 120 volt products and 240 volt products respectively. So the first type of leakage current test is the earth leakage test. It's the most common and most basic of all the leakage current tests. This measures from the line of the DUT to the ground, and only a single probe point is being measured here. Next up, we have the enclosure or touch leakage current test, which is the next most common leakage current test. This measures from an enclosure point on the DUT to ground. So if we were to have an ultrasound, for example, we would find an exposed metal point on the enclosure of that ultrasound, for example, maybe a screw, and we would measure from there to ground. And for this test, you may be required to probe up to 4 points on the enclosure to measure leakage current back to ground. Now moving on to some of the more complex leakage current tests. The patient leakage current test. This measures from a patient lead to ground. So if you were to have a DUT, something like a cardiac monitor for monitoring your vital signals, you would be measuring from the patient leads on those monitors to ground. So per 60601, you may be required to test anywhere from maybe a couple, maybe 2, all the way up to 16 different probing points, depending on how complex your DUT was and how many patient leads were coming off of your DUT. You could be required to test up to 16 patient points on the DUT back to ground. So now we move on to F-type leakage current testing. This is also commonly known as mains on applied part testing. So this is a form of patient leakage where a second AC power source will apply 110% of line voltage to the patient lead during the test. This is a requirement per 60601 for some DUTs. So you'll see here a T2 right below on this diagram. This is a second transformer or second AC power source. So what this will do, not only do you have an AC power source up here applying or outputting 110% of line voltage to power up and run the DUT itself, you're also taking an AC power source and applying 110% of line voltage to a patient lead to see how the device would operate under those conditions. So it's definitely a much stronger and more of a stringent electrical safety test and leakage current test when you're bringing in a second AC power source. And then we have patient auxiliary leakage. What this test will do is it will measure from one patient lead to another patient lead. So again, if we have a cardiac monitor that has multiple patient points coming from it, this will measure from one lead to another. And depending on how many points there are, you may be required to probe up to 16 different patient points. Okay, so we've pretty much covered now the electrical safety testing, the electrical safety tests. So now we can move into some hardware solutions that we provide for accomplishing these tests. Our family of solutions provides different options based on the complexity of your application. So this is kind of what sets us apart from many in the industry, because we're a full solutions house. So we can handle anything all the way down to manual use and then all the way up to fully automated test systems, as well as everything in between. So whether that's software that we can provide, or if you wanted to write your own software, we have LabVIEW drivers. We have commands that can be provided for writing your own software. So we'll get into a few of the different solutions we have here. So on the instrument side, we have our model 19032 electrical safety analyzer. This is considered the brains of the operation. This is where all of your electrical safety tests will be sourced from. It can do a ground bond test, both Hipot tests, insulation resistance tests, and we also have different options for leakage current testing on this. And we do also have AC power sources. So our 61600 series is most commonly used with medical device testing because it is one of our more basic AC power sources. So this is considered the muscles of the operation. It is used to vary the AC mains voltage of the DUT during the leakage current test. As I mentioned earlier, for 60601, the DUT needs to be run at 110% of line voltage. And then some benefits of using an AC power source are for line and load regulation. It ensures the voltage accuracy. It's safer for your test operators to use than a variac would be. It regulates the output current, and then you can also adjust the frequency on it if you're testing products that will be used in international markets. So now we've moved into more of the automated options that we can provide, specifically with our Sentinel systems. So our Sentinel systems is our line of medical device test systems that can help automate your setup. And some of the benefits of using a Sentinel system are that it limits operator interaction to help keep them safe. There's a switching matrix that will fully automate test point connections during the test sequence. Its repeatability is another important part of it. Improved accuracy in testing. It provides an out-of-the-box turnkey setup. There's no need to configure your instruments or do any wiring or anything like that. It's clean and easy to test with. It will help reduce your overall test time and limit your false failures and false passes, which will then enhance productivity. And another key point here that a lot of people overlook, Chroma retains the system build documentation in case it gets lost or someone leaves your company. That way it kind of just doesn't leave you SOL. So first off, we have our Sentinel I. This starts off with our model 19032 electrical safety analyzer that I was describing earlier. So you'll be able to run all of the electrical safety tests you need, but now we're combining that with our Captivate enhanced medical software. So you'll be able to utilize the software with a PC, and then it will also come with built-in IQ/OQ documentation. So now we moved on to a little bit more of a complex system. So our Sentinel II, as you'll see here on the right-hand side, it's looking more like a full system you would see in a rack. It not only builds off of the 19032 and the software and then the IQ/OQ validation documentation, but this is where you'll add the AC power source. So we have AC power source options anywhere from 500 VA to 2 kVA in-house. Then we'll also include an isolation transformer, since one of the stipulations of 60601 that there needs to be fully 100% isolated power provided. You'll be provided with clean and reliable power, as well as the 110% line voltage compliant per 60601. So now we've moved on to Sentinel III, which builds off of everything we were just getting into with the instrumentation, but now we're adding in something we haven't seen yet, which is the 19200 switching matrix. So this switching matrix will automatically switch between ground bond, Hipot, insulation resistance, and leakage current testing. So if for whatever reason you have to test more than 2 points for ground bond or more than 2 points for Hipot, this will automatically do all of the switching for you. As well as when we get into leakage current testing here, it says that it allows for multiple enclosure and patient connections. So if you have to test more than 2 enclosure points or patient lead points, this will do all of the switching for you automatically. So you can sequence through your tests without any user interactions. You will use the software to go through that test sequence, and it provides an out-of-the-box turnkey setup without needing to wire or configure any instrumentation together. So here is a close-up of what the scanner looks like. I always like to include a few pictures in these PowerPoints. That way we can kind of see what we're actually talking about instead of just continuing to read words. So you'll see the outputs there, and this is kind of where all of the switching occurs, which really is the value of having the system, especially once you get into the complex multi-point applications. And then the back of the system is located here to give you an idea of what it looks like on the back end. So you'll see how all the wiring is done, how everything is kind of mated together so all of the instruments can play well. So now we're going to get into the advantages of using the software, which is a big advantage of using the Sentinel system as a whole. So the biggest advantage of using the software is that you can better track your testing for quality assurance and audit protection purposes. So that's probably what I would say is the biggest point of acquiring some software. There are also some benefits in ease of testing. You can confirm that your operators are running your tests properly. It's easier to enter parameters for all of the electrical safety tests. You can also enter in you can also control the scanner from the software, which will allow you to set which channels you want to act as an output, which you want to act as a return, and which you want to turn off. You can safely initiate the test remotely. That will help keep your operators safe. You can capture test results, record data, and create reports based off of that data, which, as we all know, moving into the future is going to be big. Data's going to be big, and it's going to be a big reason for justifying, decisions that companies may make. And then finally, it reduces test time and boost productivity. So our software is the Captivate software, and what makes this software unique is its IQ/OQ documentation. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but basically the IQ/OQ documentation will really help with the validation of the whole medical device test system. You can send the results to a company database, like a SQL server, for example. There's label printing capability for serialized DUT traceability. There's barcode scanning capability. This will ensure proper DUT testing. More or less what that is, you could have a pre-designed barcode, and once you scan it, all of the appropriate test parameters will pull up based on the type of product you're testing. So if you have a specific DUT that you're testing, but you're now moving to a different product that you make, you can scan the barcode of that new product, and all of the different parameters for that particular product will pop up on the software. And then finally, it is a password protected software. So this will prevent operators from changing the parameters, which is kind of important. So there are 4 different permission levels on the software based on what needs you have out on the line. So again, a couple of screenshots of the software. This is the instrument setup screen. You'll see we're actually setting up one of the scanners right here. So you'll see there's a list of models, the drop-down bar you can pull from. You can tag your particular model number and then have it connect together. Then moving on to the test programming screen. So this is where you'll enter all of your electrical safety tests. They're all listed here on the left-hand side. You'll see some of the parameters we discussed earlier. So line, ground needing to be switched to open or closed. And then again, the scanner box down here, you'll see all of the channels listed out and how you want to configure them for a given test. And then finally, the testing screen. So a screen that I hope we all see while we're doing our testing is a full green and a pass screen. So this has a quick AC source check, as well as 4 earth leakage current tests that are done after that with different fault conditions. And this is what it would look like after you have completed a test on the software. And this is a standard report. This is what would happen after your test hopefully pass. So we have everything listed out here that we would need. Your product's model number, serial number, the name of the test, the result here in a bigger font, date, time, which is great for audit and tracking purposes, who ran the test, and then the list of tests and the output voltages, the leakage currents, and all of the results throughout. So now back to IQOQ documentation. So what comes with this software is an easy-to-use document that will save money and save on man hours by not having to create your own IQOQ documentation. So what IQOQ stands for is installation, qualification, and operational qualification. It's a key set of protocols within equipment verification, and these demonstrate that equipment being used or installed will offer a high degree of quality assurance such that production processes will consistently manufacture products that meet quality requirements. So another quick tidbit about our documentation is that it does include sign-off authorization and non-conformance tracking. So another thing that I did not include on here is that the document is somewhere between, I think it's 265 to 270 pages. So we're talking about a pretty sizable document where otherwise you would probably have to create that from scratch. So we have a couple of screenshots of the documentation just to show you. This one covers installation qualification procedure. So really, the next page might show you a little bit better, but it really is a step-by-step guide on how to go about validating and verifying your setup. So this right here is a screenshot of page 26 of 237, so I was off by a little bit. So this gets into the sign-on screen. So this would be somewhat at the beginning of the process, going through validating the sign-on screen, which, as funny as it sounds, is a requirement in the medical device industry. Finally, here I did want to touch on training. So we do offer training options. We offer on-site and what is probably more appropriate nowadays, remote training. We can support not only our instrumentation, but also the software and the automated test systems like the Sentinels we were getting into a little bit earlier. So these will help you get up and running as fast as possible. And really, when it comes from a product time to market standpoint, can really help improve that product time to market, especially if you have a brand new product coming out. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to learn more about medical device testing. I know that there were some questions in the chat. Did anyone have any questions on anything at all?